All right, so something that we wanted to talk about, and I think this has been a lightly discussed topic in the industry, but one of the bigger problems that we've seen has to do with the change in perception of how what someone thinks a switch should act or an occupancy sensor should act, and how now they act on advanced controls. So we were talking about an anecdote about some times where the contractor or the facilities manager has actually created problems for himself or in the system when they didn't exist in the first place. And one of them had to do with switches in a room. So many systems operate where a switch in an office, we'll just say, doesn't operate the same way that an old switch used to operate. Up is on, down is off. And nowadays, these advanced control switches act as manual override devices to a schedule that's set in the system. So if you click up, that now activates manual override over what was an occupancy-based system. So that means whatever the software it's set it in, and that becomes another challenge where the facilities manager will say, well, there's just problems out there. I'm going to set the manual override to 8 hours. Holy smokes. You know what you just did? When someone turns that switch on, those lights have to stay on for 8 hours. So when you leave and you think you have an occupancy sensor, in the old days you turn the switch on, the aux sensor overrides it because they have a relay on the switch light. Now they stay on. Now, you come into the room, someone hits, or they leave the room, they hit off. This is the good one, right? Hit off. Walk out of the room. Come back into the room, my lights aren't turning on. Well, yeah, because you just manually overrode your lights for 8 hours, that they'll never come back on. You're waving in the aux sensor, my aux sensor's broken. They call the facilities. Now the facilities comes out, yep, it's not working. Can't get a hold of anybody at the controls company. You know what? F it, I'm going into the software, I'm going to override the aux sensor, I'm going to override the manual and next thing you know, they do that to everything. They've completely decommissioned the entire system. They override the sensors, they override the switches, and now all the lights are just on all day long and literally using more energy than if they'd just left the old switches in.
Yep. Or my favorite thing to add is when the facility guy goes into above the tile and he resets the adapter.
So that's another good one.
And then he thinks he just fixed this problem, and he now thinks, oh, and this is a true story, by the way. So he resets the adapter. Now all the lights come on. Now they're always going to be on because you just reset that device. You basically took it off of the network. We can't control it anymore.
Remember, failed on. So now that it's off the network, it's just on.
So now every time this guy gets a call, I have a problem with my lights. He said, oh, I know how to fix that.
Yep.
Now you're talking, 6-story building, 5,000 offices, and our facility guy is going around for the last 5 years resetting devices. So we show up, we look at the system, and we're like, my God, like all these devices just dropped off. And you talk to the facility guy, and he goes, oh yeah, I fixed them. Well, what'd you do? I reset the device. So, that kind of goes to the point where we really need to educate these people, the facility people, when they get trainings, but they were years ago. They need to be refreshed. After that particular situation, I tell the facility guy, look, this is what happened, the strategy, I explained it. But in reality, he's busy, he's got things to do. So I'm just, here's our card, give our support team a call. That when you ever run into a situation.
Yes. And will he even be there 2-3 years from
exactly.
now?
No. These guys retire all
And
the
if
time.
we don't have a service plan in place and we aren't consistently monitoring the system and we aren't reaching out and meeting the next guy, if all we're doing is reactionary service, which a lot of people will ask for, I just want to call you when I need you, right? Pay you X amount per hour to say, well, again, that card falls into the trash, and then the next guy that comes in to backfill, he doesn't know who we are, and he keeps resetting devices again. So it goes back to that service plan of keeping us connected, and we train as part of the service plan. We train and we support, and we're in contact with the building and making sure that people aren't doing those types of things. But that was an interesting anecdote that I think I've seen a lot. It's a great way to explain why after 5 years of not touching the system, they completely decommission themselves, because it's the way that folks have figured out how to fix it, is basically decommission it all.